that together? We can't hear you out here. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. Hello to everybody here, to everybody who is joining us on Zoom. Thank you for braving the muggy day that we had here today to be with us out here. As I told Rick, as I promised Rick, no major motor movements quickly will be required of you. Okay, small movements slowly. Okay, and lemonade at the end. I just heard that Karen Goldberg is treating us, so.
So the loudspeakers actually isn't on, just so you know.
The what?
I can hear you, but
Oh, your speaker.
So that's good. I'm glad I asked. So I guess they can't hear me coming through there. And as we're fixing this, I invite us to turn to someone you haven't seen yet tonight as you came in and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Make sure your sound test with me a little bit, please. Here, let's go around this way. Fewer cables too. Well, in a second. Okay, working now? Great.
The microphone isn't connecting.
Oh, okay, no
Oh,
problem.
wait, it is now.
Oh, now it's doing better.
it's
Well,
not
the
here.
good news is that I have a very loud rabbi voice when I need to. So, and for the benefit of those on Zoom, I can also try doing a little ASL. Okay, so we're very glad that that Leslie Sood is here to light candles. Leslie, as some of you may or may not know, has taken over the reins from our very own Dr. Goldberg, turned President Dr. Goldberg, as the chair of our COVID task force. So thank you so much for doing that work and helping to keep us safe. And we can follow along on page 120 for the lighting of the candles. We enter Kabbalat Shabbat, this yearning to get closer to home, closer to the source, closer to the one, this mystical service where we can feel the rejuvenation of hundreds of years of spiritual energy just coursing through us. But you don't have to sing that loud if it makes you sweat. So that can be your barometer, okay? Let yourself feel that spiritual energy, and only if the sweat is cleansing, as it is for me. Bring it out and bring the voice, bring the ruach. I love that about this community. Bring the spirit. We're on page 636. And if the words are ever a challenge, we can go back to the nigun. Remember this one? Page 131. 131.
שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני.
Special treat tonight, which is a new melody of Lecha Dodi with a little bit of Middle Eastern flavor. So I'm very excited about this one. And Dr. Kasorla is going to teach us the chorus to learn together.
So we're going to do this in Yai Dai Dais to make it nice and easy to remember. And then you know the words. You sing the words every week. Lai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Okay, now with me. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai. Okay, excellent. We're going to do it at about that rate. Okay, even though it's it's Middle Eastern, so it goes a million miles an hour. Okay, ready? Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet ve'letila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela.
On page 138, by the way.
פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נעשוך, סוף מעשה במחשבת תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, ומצאים מתוך ההפכה. רב לך שבט במקבך, והוא יכמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise and face the rear of the space.
בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Oh, right.
You guys are awesome.
I think that one's going to stick around. I like that. All right, but we'll stay standing as we move into our Ma'ariv service. Look out for that tune on the TBT Spotify Shabbat playlist, which doesn't exist yet, but now I think I have to make it.
One.
So consider it done. Our call to prayer, page 146. Continue with the prayer for the evening Ma'ariv Aravim, which we'll read together in English on page 148. Page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God,
ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons. and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan.
You
You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening.
Avat olam
Beit
Beit Yisrael,
Yisrael,
Amchavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Haken Adonai Eloheinu, v'shofteinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי היינו באורך ימינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. On the following page, Shema.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. 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 ברוך שם כבוד, שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. ברוך שם כבוד, שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Moshe u'Miriam uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chulam. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you on the shores of this sea their song which they sang so joyfully, and so will we.
Da 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 da.
158.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך אהוב עניך, וקיים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Let's put those hands together and sing out one more time.
ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen. Page 160, we read together, Hashkivenu, protect us, O God, prayer in Hebrew. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'ha'amidenu shomrenu l'chaim, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך, והושיענו למען שמך, והגן בעדינו, והסר מעלינו אויב, דבר וחרב ורעב ויגון, והרחק ממנו עוון ופשע, וצל כנפיך תסתירנו, כי אדון אל שומרנו ומצילנו אתה. כי חנון ורחום אתה. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. Every time we come to services, it's a little bit like stepping back into a time machine and going back to revisit the past. We close our eyes, we hear some of these melodies, perhaps they transport us to a different time and place, perhaps to a family meal or a holiday or a summer camp memory or a special Jewish milestone at TBT or someplace else. we close our eyes and we are transported back to the footsteps of our ancestors, the matriarchs and patriarchs who paved the way for us to be here to this day. And when we enter that space of memory, we have an opportunity not only to think back with nostalgia to those moments, but to literally embody those people whom we love. Because all of these musical memories, every sound that activates something brings us someplace. And when we're someplace significant, it's usually because there's value there. So when we reflect on our ancestors, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, we can also think back to the footsteps of some of our own ancestors, where and how they walked, and how we might walk in their footsteps too. We turn to page 164. I invite you, if it's comfortable, please rise.
Adonai שפתי תפתח ופי אגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, ושוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה להושיע, מוריד אתה, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continue with a few moments of silent prayer. Feel free to pray at your own speed and have a seat whenever you're ready.
We were going to try, but right.
Yep.
That's really good. And there's another one, yeah. If you get the spice, yeah. And
Really good.
put it, Annie gave me for my birthday, as a blue crab one. And then she got me vodka soaked olives.
As we follow along the footsteps of our ancestors, we also look to God for prayers of healing, blessings coming down for us, for our loved ones in their merit. And so we say, in the strength and merit of our forefathers and foremothers, that the people who are ill and in need of healing should have that healing. Or if they can't get that healing right now, that they should be at least strengthened, knowing that we care for them and that God cares too. And so I'll share the names of those who I know, whom you have shared with me to be in need of healing. And then if there are others, we'll have an opportunity to share them aloud as well. We think of our temple members, Amy Agranov, April D'Amato, Norma Diamond, Ken Gammerman, Henry Gettenberg, Susan Glantz, Phyllis Kaufman, Jennifer Keller, Josh Lipschitz, Paula Redsky, and Ellen Warner. We think also of our loved ones, Linda Kaufman, Lenore Shapiro, Connie Ambrosino, Lily Mackler, Janet Stratt, Caroline Wolf, Mickey Bart, Jay Fliss, Sue Yaris, Jay Hanflig, Joanne Cursulo, Jerry Hill, Mark Ostreicher, Matthew Pincus, Brian Kamens and Stephen Kamens, Cecilia Byrne, Steve Rudnick, Carol Bartlett, Sabine Meyer, Gloria Newell, Paul Frisman, Ruth Ottenheimer, Joni Pepper, Nancy Pepper, Sherry Cohen, Joan Sidney, Michael Stafford, Ira Weiss, Drew Garabo, Peg Pig, Harold Solomon, Izzy Yagoda, Michael O'Sullivan, and Adam Zielinski. And if there are others we'd like to add to our prayers, if you're on Zoom, feel free to add their name to the chat at this time. And if you're in person, feel free to say your loved one's name aloud if you would like. Point. Harold Ron.
יקרה בת קורא ענת.
יקרה בת קורא
ענת.
We join our voices in prayers for their healing friends, page 371.
מקור and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'emotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
I'd like to say a word about words for a moment. We all know that they matter. We teach our children this. We ask them to wait and think before they speak. Is it kind? Is it true? Is it necessary? Has anybody ever said something like that to a child? Has anybody ever realized that it's important to say something like that to yourself? In Texas this week, a jury ordered the conspiracy theorist Alex Jones to pay over $4 million to the parents of a Sandy Hook shooting victim. Alex Jones claimed the shooting was a hoax. His words were defamatory and destructive. And a judge agrees, so he will pay the price. Even from the very first chapter in the Torah, God creates with words, right? Let there be light. There was light. Let there be animals. Let there be humans. And there were. In Judaism, words can bless and words can curse. Words can create worlds and words can tear them down too. This week in the Torah, we read the portion called Devarim, which in Hebrew means words. And it's the beginning of the final book, Deuteronomy. It consists of Moses' last speeches to the Israelites on the border of the promised land. Ironic in a certain way, actually in many ways, maybe the most significant one being that he starts out his journey by saying, I am not a man of words. Lo ish devarim anochi. And here he is, and a man of great words and great eloquence. One of the other ironies, of course, is that Moses, who's led the people for 40 years, won't get to go in with them. And so he reminds them, he feels the need to instill all of the wisdom and chastisement and reminders of everything that has befallen them in the past 40 years, largely on account of their own behavior. His speeches in the book of Deuteronomy are often intense, sometimes very poetic, and occasionally incredibly beautiful, which is ironic again, because he told God, essentially God, with respect, buzz off, when God first asked Moses to do this. I am not a man of words. I have no eloquence. Don't choose me. Send someone else. God, of course, did choose him, and what an ish devarim, what a man of words he became. Now, Rabbi Alan Liu, who's one of my favorite authors, wrote one of my favorite books. And in that book, he traces an almost mystical synchronicity between the words of the Torah and the seasons in which we read them. He calls it a subtle rhyme between season and text. For instance, Passover is a holiday of physical purification. We get rid of what? The chametz, right? We search for all of the crumbs. We get rid of what puffs us up. Some of us may have 2 sets of dishes for this purpose. We search out and sell and even burn all of this dross as a symbol of the inner purification that we look to achieve. And during those days, we read in the Torah portions, the laws concerning the purification of the Mishkan, the great temple sanctuary. Consider another example, Hanukkah. We're always reading about whom around Hanukkah? I'll give you, well, definitely the Maccabees, Anne, but in the Torah portions surrounding the holiday of Hanukkah, remember the Jewish holiday and the Torah portions that we're reading at that holiday are often not connected at all. But because of our very complex calendar, the Torah portions come around the same seasons every year. So we're always reading the same ones at roughly the same times, with a couple of small exceptions. And during Hanukkah, we're always reading about Joseph and his brothers. And that whole story, that's the majority of the end of the book of Genesis. In that story, just as we read about those ancient Maccabees prevailing against the pulls of assimilation and the prevailing Hellenistic culture, we read the story of Joseph, who rose to power in Egypt, took on an Egyptian name, married an Egyptian woman, shaved like an Egyptian. Isn't that the name of an 80s song by the Bangles? Dressed like an Egyptian, and denied his Jewish brothers, right? They came to see him, but he had transformed himself to be radically other. Of course, the story can only conclude when he comes back to his true self, embraces his brothers, and shows them who he has been all along. How appropriate that Hanukkah means rededication then, or renewal. But Joseph had to go down into the pit first. He had to get locked up in that dungeon, alienated from his true self, in order to then regain it. And that estrangement from self and God is how the high holiday season begins, which is happening right now. Yes, now. Dr. Casorla, don't have a heart attack. Tomorrow is Tisha B'Av. Tomorrow is the holiday of Tisha B'Av, which may be one that you're less familiar with. Most American Jews, I think, are less familiar with it. It's the 9th day of the month of Av, and it's a day that commemorates the destruction of the first and second temples. It also commemorates the horrific massacres of the Crusades in the 11th century, the liquidation of the Warsaw Ghetto during the Holocaust, and a number of other calamities in between those times and even further back that rather inauspiciously happened on that day. The destruction of the temple and the pain of exile are the paradigm in Judaism of estrangement and distance. So it says in our liturgy, "Mipnei chataenu galinu me'artzenu." On account of our sins, the walls came down. We were banished from our land. Later, the Talmud, in recounting many of these tragedies, goes back further in time, far before history, into what we would call prehistory of Judaism. The first chronological event predates the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem by perhaps 1,000 years or more. And that is the sin of the scouts. Do you remember that one? We encountered that in the Torah about a couple months ago. The story goes that scouts went out when they were near to the land of Canaan after having arrived after a fairly short walk, because it's not that far from Egypt to the promised land, right? And their job was to search out who was living there. And their report came back very negative. The majority said that they feared the inhabitants, and that on this reconnaissance mission, they claimed that the Israelites would never be able to successfully settle the land. For their lack of faith, they were punished to wander for another 40 years, according to one of the narratives in the Torah anyway. An account of their words, those evil reports that they sent back, a generation was lost. Everyone in that generation of the spies was cursed to wander the desert, but never to make it in alive. And so how does the Torah portion called Divarim, words, begin? What does Moses remind us of every year as we approach this most solemn of holidays, 7 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, where we recall the walls coming down, the destruction of exile, and the feeling of distance from God? Well, he starts by telling which story? Anybody know? Beginning of Deuteronomy, he starts by telling the story of the scouts. He starts by telling of that paradigmatic sin. As Rabbi Lou says, a rhyme between Torah and time. As American Jews, we often, and myself included, have a hard time with this holiday because on its surface, are we really so terribly sad about not having the temple anymore? Without exile, of course, we wouldn't have diaspora, which is really a similar concept, but in a, I believe, positive way. Without destruction, we wouldn't have had the rebirth of a global Judaism, the ability to have melodies from so many different times and places throughout even our service tonight. I feel that very deeply as true. And yet also, on the other hand, the spiritual weight of Tisha B'Av tugs me in a different direction, reminding me that each of us circle around the seasons. We feel the push and the pull of the holidays and of our inner lives, success and failure, confidence and weakness, estrangement and return. The season invites us to examine the walls of our lives. What walls have come down? Maybe live in that feeling a little bit, reflect on it. We have to know where the weaknesses are, just like Joseph did, in order to rebuild. And so there's an accompaniment to the liturgy of Tisha B'Av, which is called the book of Eicha, or Lamentations. The book of Lamentations is traditionally ascribed to the prophet Jeremiah, a prophet of exile, who's comforting the people and reflecting on the pain that they've lived through by account of their banishment from Jerusalem to Babylonia. And that scroll, just like the other scrolls around the seasons, whether it's the scroll of Esther or Ecclesiastes or the Song of Songs at Passover, have a different song and a different sound. And Dr. Casorla is actually going to give us a taste of what that sounds like, but she's going to do it not from the original scroll of Lamentations, but rather in a little bit more of an updated American way. So what a very enterprising rabbi, who I believe is actually one of your teachers, right, has done is he took a poem called called Hymn for the Hurting. And it's by Amanda Gorman. Do you remember Amanda Gorman? Do you remember hearing from her? Is she actually the poet laureate of the United States right now? I think she is, right?
She's the youngest ever.
The youngest ever. And wow, what a fire she has. Oh my gosh. To hear one of her poems is truly to be stirred. And I don't know if she would have intended that the poem would be sung in this way, but I have to hope that she would really appreciate what Rabbi Marcus has done. So if you'd like to follow along with this poem, I have a few copies which I can pass out. And I have about one for every two of you, so thank you for sharing. Because I didn't want to pop down all the people.
Everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddy and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children, cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive, and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days while at the same time blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try. Thus, while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. Maybe everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts, may everything change.
Don't know what to say to that except for Amen. So Tisha B'Av, we sit a little bit in the ashes of what is broken around us, because through the next 7 weeks, we have an opportunity to engage in cheshbon hanefesh, in an accounting of self, in a evaluation of our relationships, in a really honest appraisal of what can change so that we can be a part of that change, as this poet so powerfully reminds us. Thank you very much. I'll invite us to turn now to the conclusion of our service, which is Aleinu L'Shabeach, page 586. If it's comfortable for you, please rise.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגואלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ היום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You can all have a seat, except for Andrea San Marco, who will greet us, please, on behalf of our board. Just watch your step with all of these wires, okay?
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. A warm welcome to any guests here with us tonight. My name is Andrea San Marco, and I am the secretary on the board of directors. Tomorrow, join us on Zoom for Jewish mindfulness and meditation at 8 a.m., followed by Torah study at 9 a.m., led by Rabbi Moss. Links are in your inbox. This Tuesday, August 9th, we will again be hosting renovation tours, including wine and cheese and schmoozing with Rabbi Moss and Dr. Kasorla. Sign-up links are in your inbox, as well as sign-up links for other opportunities to get to know Dr. Casorla. Rabbi Morris and Dr. Casorla will be teaching a class during the Hebrew month of Elul. Study, reflection, and mindful practice will help us prepare for the High Holy Days. More info is in your inbox. Our next and last Beach Shabbat of the summer will be next Friday, August 12th at 6:30 p.m. on East Wharf. Once again, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I'm not going to
Thank
hug you
you.
because you don't want that, but super schwitzy. I'm sure that we've all had the experience where something unexpected will just remind us of someone unexpectedly who is no longer in our life. And we can't help but smile and feel sad and experience all of the emotions that grief wells up within us. And so this week I was studying with a friend and we were talking about our teacher, Rabbi Dr. Aaron Pinkin, who very tragically passed away a few years ago, actually more than a few at this point, about 5 years ago. He was the president of Hebrew Union College, which is the seminary I attended, and he was a total mensch. So I hope you'll indulge me as we enter the space of memory to share something, not actually that he wrote, but that his sister, who's also a rabbi, wrote in reflecting about him. And she calls it, "Your death is not a one-time event." Your death was not a one-time event, like a tornado or a bad first date that harden into memory the minute they're over. No, you die over and over every day in more ways than I can count. It happens when I expect it and especially when I don't. I lose you all over again when I eat a salad with tangy blue cheese dressing or a bowl of cold borscht, and when I notice the nubby knit of an Argyle sweater, an Argyle sweater vest, and when I hear the buzzing of a Cessna kissing the clouds beneath a blue sky, and when something makes me laugh, and I think you would have laughed too. I lose you again on birthdays and anniversaries, when your dependable sweet call never comes, no matter how much I expect it. I lose you at Passover, when your bowls and bowls of charoset from around the world are missing from the table, and now there will never be enough charoset on the table ever again. I will lose you again and again, when your children get married, and my children become bar and bat mitzvah, and your grandchildren are born and you can't hold them and love them and make them laugh. You are so absent now, where you were always present, and your death isn't in the past. It happens over and over and over again, every day, in ways both tiny and enormous. You keep dying, and I keep grieving. Very powerful. Like to honor the loss of those who passed away at this time in years gone by. So if you are here to observe a yard site, I do invite you to stand, and if you're comfortable, remain standing. We remember Patrick Capozzi, Sarah Meltzer, Eleanor Carano, Shep Saperstein, Lillian Katenik, Harriet Ringel, Gertrude Myers, Marilyn Schneider, Adele Seligman, Harmon Corey, Beatrice Finns, and Saul Rosenberg. There are others who you're remembering tonight. Feel free to share their name in our chat if you're on Zoom or here in person. I invite us all to rise in solidarity with all who mourn. Thank you for those who shared names here or in the chat. The Holy One hears and values each name and each soul, regardless of how we share them. Page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach chirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon, u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lemei omeah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitaдар v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kodesha b'richu. Le'elam min kol bechata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace grant peace to all those who are grieving, as together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Shabbat shalom, friends. You can have a seat, except for Rick and Ann. Would you like to come lead Kiddush with us? I haven't seen you here in a little while. It's good to see you. Let's hear your voices a little. 130, 123, maybe?
Okay, I'll catch it.
Just watch, please just watch the, you guys stand right here so we can hear your voices. Yeah, we do the full Kiddush. All right? Yeah, all right.
I'm here with you. You got it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav ve'atzah b'anu, v'shabbat kodsho ve'ahava u'ratzon yichilanu, zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tefillah v'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher tzidiyah mitzrayim, ki lanu bacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim b'shat kodeshecha ve'ahava u'ratzon yichatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashat lechaim.
Chaim, מעשים טובים.
בבקשה.
We're in the same cover box. You can sit there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I brought two.
And you should also thank Baba because he's the one who figured out that too. Grab the phone.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Thank you for asking us.
Yeah, don't go anywhere though. You're gonna sing the closing song with us too. Up here? What do you say?
Sure.
It's a round, so more voices are wonderful. Okay, you know what I mean? I do
And
know. Not to
your
put you
voice
on the
is
spot.
wonderful.
You guys, you know this one. Okay, so Dr. C, what's our closing song?
Hashivenu, which was our opening nigun. So you've already done the yai for this. And I'm going to point this way.
And it's on
You-
page?
It's on page 662. You all are with me.
Okay, so
You-
I'm going to give you a key and you get started and Dr. C is the conductor, okay?
Okay,
And we'll come in.
great. You come in with them. Okay, so you point that way. I'm going to point this way.
Okay.
We good? All right. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, You're hired.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, way too much.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.